Hello and welcome to episode 645 of the podcast devoted to the classic and sometimes not so classic genre cinema of yesteryear. This is your writer, host, producer, Derek M. Cook, checking in from beautiful Kuwait. Yes, I said it, Kuwait. We've been talking about it on the podcast here for a little while, and if you follow us on social media, you know that Beth and I have been in Kuwait. Yes, that Kuwait, working on a haunted house. Y'all know my wife, Beth. One of her dreams is to be a professional haunted house designer and to work professionally in the haunted house attraction industry. And an opportunity came up for her to come over to Kuwait and be the haunt manager for, well, the first permanent haunted house attraction here in this part of the world. This is an incredible opportunity, and of course I'm along for the ride as arm candy. And one of the actors as well. Now, this haunt is designed by Leonard Pickle, who is the country's foremost designer. He has been working in the industry for decades and has worked on everything from small March of Dimes houses to big projects with Universal Studios. He's designed the haunt. This whole thing is bankrolled by a group that has a ton of money that they're dumping into this project. And they flew Beth and I out here to work at it, and it has been an amazing experience. Unfortunately, it does mean that Monster Kid Radio ended up going on a brief hiatus, and I do apologize for that. However, I do have an episode of the podcast available for you today. This is a recording from the October 2023, it is still 2023, right? Yeah, 2023 Monster Bash, where Mike Ramsey whipped out his recorder and recorded the Q&A with an actor from one of my absolute favorite Dracula movies, Zandor Vorkov from Dracula vs. Frankenstein. Yes, I know this movie gets a lot of, grief or slack or flack. I don't know. I love this movie. This movie makes me very, very happy. Every time I watch it, I like it even more. And knowing that Zandor Vorkov, Dracula himself, was at Monster Bash for a Q&A, man, I wish I could have been there, but I've got the next best thing. I've got Mike Ramsey recording the conversation for us here, so you've got that on this week's episode of Monster Kid Radio. Plus, of course, we've got Mark Matzke's Beta Capsule review, where he's still in the midst of the return of Ultraman. Plus, Kenny's look at famous monsters of Filmland. That's all coming up right here. Now, as I started recording this on my portable recorder in our hotel room, Beth came into the room and sat down next to me. I kind of have the impression she's putting off this put me on the podcast vibe, this put me in coach kind of thing going on. So did you want to say something? Is that why you're here?
I just wanted to thank all our monster kids for, continuing to follow us and follow this great adventure that we're on, and look forward to, in the next few episodes, our investigation into monsters in this part of the world and what monsters mate to them. I know we've been doing some research. We've been talking to some locals. I've been talking to a lot of my actors who are playing zombies in the haunted house that we're producing, and I think we're going to come up with some interesting stuff. I'm really even hoping to have some movies to discuss before we're done here.
So she didn't run any of that by me. I know that she and I have talked a little bit about doing some investigations into local monster stuff so that we can bring some Kuwaiti monster flavor to Monster Kid Radio. If she's got something in mind, I'm on board, because she usually has the better ideas between the two of us. Anyway, so yeah, I'm totally down for that. It's been quite a ride. AmericanHaunters.com is where you're going to be able to find everything about our trip here in Kuwait. Now, that does right now forward you to our Instagram page, which is also called American Haunters. Please follow us on Instagram, because we're posting pretty much daily pictures from our lives here in Kuwait. Not a lot of pictures from the haunt itself. There's a couple of different reasons for that. One, there's an NDA. We did sign an NDA with our contract, so that is in place. So as of right now, we can't share too many behind-the-scenes secrets. However, I have been snapping a few pics here and there, and eventually I'll be sharing them. But also, who takes a camera into a haunted house? I don't want to spoil anything for everybody, so, all of you that are listening in Kuwait, that makes no sense. I know none of you are in Kuwait, but eventually we'll put some posts out there that show a little bit more details of the haunt. However, if you want to see us kind of getting our kitty fix.
Yeah, if you love small, furry, homicidal maniacs running loose in the streets of Kuwait, we have the Kuwaiti kitties of the day that we've been recording and sharing with everyone. And boy, is there a huge variety of colors and patterns and all kinds of loviness levels.
For those of you who might be concerned about kitties, speaking of which, Wednesday is safely at my mother's house in Arizona. She inadvertently became a snowbird this winter, so she is kicking it, living her best life in Arizona, where it is not snowing like it is back in our hometown of Vancouver, Washington. So she's enjoying some time with her grandma, with my mother in Arizona, whereas Beth and I are feeding every stray cat we find. Specifically, Beth is. See, there are cats everywhere here in Kuwait, tons of cats on the streets. They are part of the culture. A lot of people put out food and water for them. Every time Beth and I go to the grocery store, we make sure that we have cat food on us, or we pick some more up if we need to, because we want to feed the cats when we're out and about. And every once in a while, we get some love from them back, which has been nice. I mean, no replacement for Wednesday or Rex or Juniper, but, you know, it's something, and we get our kitty fix. So yeah, follow us on Instagram for the Kuwaiti kitty of the day, as well as random pictures from where we are in Kuwait, and the occasional picture from the haunt. Like I said, eventually we will be putting more haunt content up there. Right now, we're focusing primarily on us just being here in Kuwait. Because Beth did just kind of drop something on you about something that's coming up on the podcast that I wasn't necessarily aware of, maybe it's time for me to share something on the podcast that she's not necessarily aware of. All right, so, you know, every time I make a commitment like this, it puts a little bit of pressure on me, but I'm going to put this out there because I kind of want y'all to hold me to it. This is a zombie haunt. This is BBT Red Town. BBT stands for the best burger in town. It is in conjunction with Burger Restaurant. It's the company that's putting this whole thing together. And it's a zombie haunt. It's a hospital. It's set up to where you walk into a hospital, a doctor, usually played by me, welcomes you to Red Town Hospital for the Sick, where every arrangement has been made for your permanent stay.
The food is delicious, but every bite could be your last.
Wow. Okay, 1, she came up without the top of her head, I'm assuming, and 2, we don't really know we're vegetarian, but 3, everybody seems to like it, so, you know, anyway. It's a zombie haunt. You know, you go into a hospital, turns out the doctor's doing some pretty creepy stuff, and there's zombies! Oh no! Well, guess who used to really be into zombies? Ding, 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 that would be me. I used to be a huge zombie fan. In fact, I used to put out a podcast called Mail Order Zombie many, many moons ago when the world was young and dinosaurs roamed the earth, or like 11 years ago. Which, as old as I feel these days, having just turned 50, it's many, many moons ago. Anyway, this has started to reignite my love of zombie media. No, I'm not going to go crazy and launch Mail Order Zombie again. I'm not bringing back Mail Order Zombie, the podcast. However, I kind of want to bring back Mail Order Zombie in another form. I think, especially given the name of said property, I guess, what the podcast was, 2024, we will see the launch of the Mail Order Zombie zine. What do you think, Connie? You okay with that?
Oh, I love that. That's fantastic.
So it will be part of the Mail Order Zombie story. I'll talk about the podcast in it, that sort of thing. There will be some zombie reviews. Maybe I'll go back and look at some movie reviews that I did on the podcast many, many moons ago, blah, 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 and reevaluate them, see if they held up, that sort of thing. And maybe even talk about some new zombie stuff. Maybe interview some zombie people, and maybe bring some people that were involved with Mail Order Zombie, need a nickname Scott, into the mix to see if he'd be interested in contributing anything, or maybe even doing an interview with some previous contributors to that podcast. Need a nickname Scott. So yeah, you know, Mail Order Zombie will be coming back in 2024 as a zine. You know, I'm calling it a zine, but it's probably something that we're going to put out through Amazon, that sort of thing. But yeah, that is something that we can expect in 2024. I have been jonesing, like really jonesing, to revisit the Lucio Fulci zombie films after having worked at this haunt. Partly because some of the zombie makeup that's being done, the zombie characters that are being presented, kind of remind me of zombies from things like, well, Zombie, or specifically The Beyond. Now, I don't know if these are movies that I can show my wife. They are pretty bloody, pretty gory.
You know I took 3 semesters of human biology, including the corpse lab, right?
It's not that. It's just that I'm not going to get into it on Monster Kid Radio. It's not really appropriate, but it's pretty rough. But anyway, there's even like a Lovecraftian touch to the Beyond. Sort of. It doesn't matter. Miller Zombie coming back in 2024 in some way, shape, or form. Probably a zine. Stay tuned for that. Stay tuned for more content with The Haunt and other things from me and Beth as we continue Monster Kid Radio from here in Kuwait. And stay tuned for Mark and Kenny. Cool?
Cool.
Human mind. One way is to remove the brain itself and control it. It's a fiendish spectacle of shocking surgery as new life is given to a man already dead, a creature created in an operation of horror. Can man control his most fiendish impulses to destroy? See, brain of blood for the shocking answer. His body returned to its grave, but the brain was gone, living on in a madman's skull. Deep in the doctor's chamber of horrors, living victims supplied the serum for his experiments. So fantastic and unbelievable that you'll have to watch every moment of Brain of Blood to see for yourself. Monster with the mind of a madman seeks vengeance. His body died. His brain was saved for the most unholy experiments. The brain of a dead man lives in a creature of horror.
White Zombie, a new novelization of the classic horror movie from award-winning author Stephen D. Sullivan. Available now in print and all ebook formats. Find it on Amazon, Smashwords, Drive-Thru Fiction, and other quality outlets. Also available in a special edition, including the complete movie script. Grab White Zombie before it grabs you. Details at sdsullivan.com.
Live from the Land of Light in Nebula M78, home of the mighty Ultra Heroes, it's Monster Kid Radio's Beta Capsule Review. Return of Ultraman, Episode 38, When the Star of Ultra Shines. Original air date, December 24th, 1971. As was the case last week, there are major spoilers ahead. Planning to invade Earth, alien Knuckle used monsters to study Ultraman's weapons. They taught and trained Black King and Bemstar and had them fight Ultraman. Not only that, they killed Aki and Ken Sakata to break his heart. Ultraman fell before Knuckle's cruel methods, and his shackled body was transported to deep space. The aliens attack Space Station V1 and disable Monster Attack Team with an electromagnetic wave. On a video call with MAT, alien Knuckle demands unconditional surrender within 12 hours, revealing that they possess the high-explosive Saturn Z, and then proceed to destroy the space station. Captain Ibuki reasons that Knuckle must have a base on Earth already, and sends Minami and Ueno to find it. This turns out to be ill-considered, as it leads to much of MAT falling under the hypnotic control of the aliens. Meanwhile, on planet Knuckle, Ultraman awaits his final execution, when suddenly, the original Ultraman appears along with Ultra 7. Shin Hayata enlists the help of Dan Muraboshi to execute Operation Star of Ultra, which, if done properly, will resurrect their brother. Episode 38, the culmination of the alien Knuckle storyline, resulted in incredibly high ratings, and the show dominated its time slot for the rest of its run. Return of Ultraman, at its growing popularity, has even been credited with sparking the second kaiju boom in Japanese film and TV, leading directly to the creation of series like Kamen Rider and Power Rangers. One can only imagine the reaction young viewers must have had who had been raised on Ultraman and Ultra 7 to see the heroes combine their efforts in this way, accompanied by their iconic theme songs. Although hinted at the finale of the first Ultraman series, the concept of a united Ultraverse begins to take full form here, and Tsuburaya Productions has leaned into these connections ever since. It's obvious, but still worth mentioning, that Episode 38 makes it clear that the Ultraman of Return of Ultraman is not the original Ultraman after all. In pre-production, and even in the early part of the series, there was some ambiguity about his identity, but that is definitively removed, and for that reason, the retroactive decision was made to name this hero Ultraman Jack, although that name is never used in the series. One more note, in an excellent bit of forethought and planning, this episode concludes with Hideki Go reuniting with Jiro Sakata on Christmas Eve, which is the date of its original broadcast on December 24th, 1971. For Monster Kid Radio's Beta Capsule Review, this is Mark Matzke reporting.
He rose from the deathly silence of the tomb to bathe the world in blood. See grave of the vampire.
So we fear the gods, demons, devils, bats, banshees. Vampires? Yes, as a matter of fact, vampires.
He was conceived in a grave and weaned on human blood. Could he ever deny the horrible evil within himself? He is absolutely evil, cruel, horrifying in his lust for blood. Your lust. See grave of the vampire.
The return of Count Yorga. The Death Master is back, and with him the hordes of nameless horrors he commands. The return of Count Yorga may be too violent for younger children.
This is an encore presentation of A Look at Famous Monsters of Filmland from MKR 466 from April of 2020. Hello there, Monster Kid Radio heads. This is Kenny with a look at Famous Monsters of Filmland. This week's movie, the infamous Dracula vs. Frankenstein, had a special place in the heart of famous monsters. Let's see why. The film was first mentioned in FM 80 from October of 1970. In the preview article, Future Fantastic Film Marvels, we see 4 pictures from the film, including one with Dracula and Frankenstein's monster holding copies of famous monsters, while editor Forrest J. Ackerman looks on. In these pictures, the film is captioned with the title Blood of Frankenstein, though the title of Dracula vs. Frankenstein is mentioned in a list of upcoming films including I Am Legend, Omega Man, Vampire Lovers, and Count Yorga Vampire, among 80 other titles, some that were probably never made and others that are today considered classics. Later on in the same issue, Blood of Frankenstein is given a closer look together with the film Horror of the Blood Monsters. The two share an article that is 6 pages long and includes 5 pictures from Dracula vs. Frankenstein. It begins in pun-filled glory typical of famous monsters. Theaters playing the latest monsterific duo of horror pics will be in the red. But literally, while the box office turns green with lettuce, the screen runs red with ketchup. Or is it? See Blood of Frankenstein and Horror of the Blood Monsters and decide for yourself whether you're seeing a mere motion picture or horrible reality. The article continues with a look at Horror of the Blood Monsters, which, like Dracula vs. Frankenstein, was directed by Schlock auteur Al Adamson. Next is a look at our feature film. The other feature, Blood of Frankenstein, is in color, reunites Lon Chaney Jr. and J. Carrol Naish, who made horror history in 1944 in House of Frankenstein, and was co-authored by none less than Sam Sherman, one-time co-editor of our companion magazine, Screen Thrills. The picture also returns to the screen Angelo Rosito, the famous midget whose presence has added menace to many a great terror film of the past, and introduces Zandor Vorkov as Count Dracula, and John Bloom, an actual 7-footer, as Frankenstein's monster. Forrest J. Ackerman, who was technical advisor on the film, also plays a cameo role as a scientist, who has the misfortune to run into the monster one midnight. A brief synopsis continues, which refrains from spoiling the end of the picture, but does have this detailed look at Forey's cameo. A scientist, Forrest Ackerman, who had worked on revivification of the Frankenstein monster years earlier, is alone in his car late one night, when the Prince of Darkness mysteriously materializes at his side. Dr. Beaumont is understandably shocked. He babbles, Who are you? The pale, thin creature with the pointed black beard and hungry, beady eyes replies menacingly, I am known as the Count of Darkness, the Lord of the Manor of Carpathia. I am. Eyes widening in horrified comprehension, Dr. Beaumont completes his description. Dracula. More nervous than ever, he practically trips over his own tongue as he blurts out, I'll tell you what you want to know. I can be of great assistance to you. The monster's body is almost indestructible, but his heart, if his heart is destroyed at high temperatures, as Beaumont dares look directly at Dracula, he becomes hypnotized by the vampire's stare. Dracula directs him to drive to where his dread destiny awaits him in the form of the Frankenstein monster. Screaming and writhing futilely, Dr. Beaumont is crushed to death in the incredibly powerful arms of the towering 7-foot 7-inch cadaver of destruction. The article concludes with this look at one of its famous stars. We got an advance peek at the press book on Blood of Frankenstein, and courtesy of Sam Sherman, are permitted to preprint this selection on one of the last of the greats who plays Groton. Don't call me Lon Chaney Jr., growls Lon Chaney Jr., currently starring in Blood of Frankenstein. Don't you think it's ridiculous for a man who's a grandfather several times over? Now, Lon Chaney Jr., Chaney, the younger, brings to the screen a powerful performance reminiscent of his unforgettable role as the dumb brute Lenny of Mice and Men, as he portrays a great hulking creature more brawn than brain in Blood of Frankenstein. Bringing thrills to the screen since 1932, today's Lon Chaney has rarely appeared with more chilling effect than as Groton in this modern monster movie where the undying monster meets the undead vampire. Is that all we see of this not-so-classic film in FM? Of course not. 9 issues later, on the cover of issue 89 from March of 1972, Zandor Vorkov's Dracula graces the cover. Inside is a Dracula vs. Frankenstein film book, so you can relive all the thrills and chills in a literary fashion. It is 8 pages long and features 11 photos, including 5 from Forey's cameo and death scene. Even though this article came out 17 months after the preview, it appears the film is on the verge of being released. A new and maniacal movie is coming to your local movie theater soon from Independent International Pictures, Dracula vs. Frankenstein. This is the film that was originally announced to FM readers under the production title of Blood of Frankenstein. It's packed full of familiar faces and fiendish fright. 17 months later, Adamson really took his time to make sure his masterpiece was perfect. After yet another more detailed synopsis, the article concludes with this encouragement to see this film. Dracula vs. Frankenstein is a must-see for FM readers, and it is packed full of unusual horror oddities. Editor Forey Ackerman, who was also technical consultant to the production, appears in the film as Dr. Beaumont, and is the new Frankenstein monster's first victim. Victimized and frightened by Dr. Frankenstein's horror creations are beautiful Regina Carroll and Hollywood veterans Russ Tamblyn, Jim Davis, and Anthony Isley. And in the mad Frankenstein's lab itself, seen for the first time in color by Deluxe, are some of the original high-voltage sparking machines used in the original Frankenstein, Bride of Frankenstein, and Son of Frankenstein, all the creation of electronic wizard Ken Strickfaden. Adding to the atmosphere is a chilling old-time style music score by William Lava, famed for his Great Republic serial music and music for Universal's Creature from the Black Lagoon series. Pick your choice for winner now. The contestants are deathly cold and can't warm up for their main event. Dracula vs. Frankenstein is a fight of fright. On a personal note, thanks to the book Shock It To Me, Golden Ghouls of the Golden Gate by Michael Monahan, I can tell you that Saturday, May 18th of 1974, 10-year-old Kenny watched Dracula vs. Frankenstein at 9:30 p.m. on Bob Wilkins' Creature Features. I have memories of the time that have never left me, like a horrifying nightmare you want to forget. Not because I was scared of the monsters, though, but because I had a true taste of how bad a movie can be. I have never forgot. That is all for this week's look at famous monsters. We'll have more next time. For MKR, this is Kenny saying adios.
Silly tales about ghouls chased away by garlic and vampires shrinking from crosses.
She kidnapped young girls and kept them chained to give blood. Blood for her to bathe in and drink. And she bit them everywhere.
No.
And then she pushed white-hot pokers into their faces. And when they parted their lips to scream, she shoved the flaming rod up into their mouths.
Stop it. Blood. Beautiful red blood. Stop it! Her arms. My legs. Stop it. Worry, you're safe with me.
I killed no one.
Again.
It's difficult to forget.
Ah, you will. After a while, it'll only be the remembrance of a bad dream. And then the remains of a remembrance. More and more faint in your mind. I have seen many a night fall away into an even more endless night.
Nights like last night.
Who do you think I am? A kind of ghoul? A vampire? Oh, no, my dear. So many nights, tumbling and tumbling away into the abyss of time. Faster, my love, faster, faster.
If you think these ladies are something, wait until you meet Mother. She's something else.
Trip into a nightmare of evil with Guess What Happened to Count Dracula. He's back from the grave to rule the satanic, occult-ridden world of today's mind-blown youth. Say it with someone you trust.
Don't go.
Why?
Because of them frightened, guys.
You'll plunge into a nightmare of evil, thrills, chills, horror, terror, shock, panic, and violence, climaxing in an orgy of blood and death.
Tonight is a special night of the Black Calendar. No one passing the dungeon this evening could begin to suspect the events it will hold.
Guess what happened to Count Dracula will trip you into a blood-smeared torture chamber and you'll never get out.
Let it go! Let it go! Let it go!
Don't see it alone. See it with someone you trust. Guess what happened to Count Dracula will blow your mind. Never before such blood-chilling terror, more terrifying than ever before. This is the picture that nightmares are made of. Guess what happened to Count Dracula is a supreme example of a top-notch motion picture thriller filmed in magnificent blood-dripping color. It will make you scream and shriek and gasp. Guess what happened to Count Dracula? Don't miss it.
A Merrick International Picture.
Rated GP.
Now we are proud to announce he's here again, Zandor Vorkov with John Good.
Good evening.
Hello.
How many of you were here last year when we did this? Oh, let's go. Yeah, we're going to do stuff different tonight, I'm sure, because we've been busy meeting and greeting you. Do you feel greeted? So, am I heard?
You have the mic close to your mouth.
Am I heard?
Oh, yeah.
So, Zandor Vorkov was a name given to me by the guy you just saw crushed in the car. Forey Ackerman, a legend in his time. And the Dracula character, it's a curiosity. And some of you may have heard this before, read it in different interviews I've given. I was never a fan of horror. And I've since then become a great appreciator of folks like yourself, and it led me to try to understand what the allure is for a fictional character whose sole purpose is to take the life force. Blood is the life, as someone once said, Mr. Lugosi. And it's caused me to dive deeply into my own dark self over the years since I've been doing this. Sam Sherman, if you know that name, he is the producer, the writer, the screenwriter, and he's a legend on this. He was Al Adamson's partner. Al's, if you know the story, Al's no longer with us, nor is Gina, his wife. They departed. And so I'm left, in a sense, with carrying on a particular kind of legacy. Ron was kind enough to put a shot of me on the website, the Monster Bash website, that took place the beginning of September, the Severn Sleepover Films Festival up in Indianapolis. And it was held in a tent, and the tent was open, and I was at much like this thing in here, I'm at the edge, but it was an open tent. So a guy kept pulling up with his little mini motorcycle, and finally I'm dressed like this, and he said, "Would you mind if I take a picture of you on my bike?" I said, "Yeah, go ahead." So I'm sitting there, takes the picture, and people from Severn came over and took the picture, and then they sent it to me, and I sent it to a couple of
friends of mine, and one response from a very well-schooled aficionado of horror, like yourselves, I assume. He said, "This is a poster." And I went, "Bingo." Unfortunately, it didn't make it here in time, but if you've seen it, I had written on it, "Dracula Turns," which is the title of the story my writing partner and I created about a year ago we're looking at to be a graphic novel or a film. A number of people in the business have taken a look at this and they said, "This is so different than anything we've seen. You've got something here." I said, "Throw money at it then." So I get the chance to meet and greet folks like yourself until the money comes to make a film or a graphic novel. But the whole moral of the story I'm trying to get across is that we're living in a time that's a little different than Bela and Christopher Lee and those folks lived in. You know what's going on in the world. And so the premise of what my writing partner and the people I'm working with are about is that it's time for Dracula to turn. So the picture of me on the bike, has anybody seen that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it'll be around, unfortunately. Yeah, you go on the Monster Bash website, you'll find it somewhere. Actually, it's on my website, which is ZandorVorkov.com, and if you, I've got what they call business cards on my table there. You can pick one up. It's there, but there are 4 labels on the top, and the one that says the Zandor Vorkov, I forgot what it was, Plastic Fang Society. Yeah. And a man who was a friend of mine put it up, the website up, and under the Plastic Fang Society, if you scroll down, there's the picture of me on the bike. But these are the times are calling for this kind of change to let people see there's a different reality. It's not like it used to be for any of us, right? We make the best of it. I am so proud to be coming here. This is my second invite back here, because when Ron told me about it, he said it's like a big family, and that's the experience I have of you all. And now I'm part of it. Thank you very much for all. So, if any of you have money to throw at this film, I'll be glad to listen. Okay. Oh, it's quite a unique thing, and something will happen. You'll see it. It's a story that I think will touch a lot of people, because I was telling John before we came in here, Dracula, of course, is the antagonist, but we've created, I'll just say, the divine Sophia, who represents Mother Nature. And we have a whole different perspective on what that looks like. And for the people in the know who read that, they said, you've got something here. So hopefully you'll hear it first here, and it'll become, support that energetically, and we'll all get to see it made. So Dracula Turns, that's the working title, and you'll hear more if you follow the Facebook and my website, because the people I'm working with are looking to create this kind of reality that we all have the planet we're looking for. And it's gotten way out of hand, but we're in the middle of a great evolutionary process. And you're all smiling. We're very fortunate that we get to be here. You know what's going on in the world. We're the fortunate ones, you know? So, yeah. Questions? I'll give it to him.
I just want to say, Zandor kindly allowed me to wear this cape tonight. So in addition to everything else, all his new projects, you can find on ZandorVorkov.com. He has his business cards there. But would you be open to be like a fashion consultant?
A which?
A fashion consultant, if other people were to reach out to you and...
Sure!
Anyone have any questions?
I was just reading it. You mentioned Sherman, and I was just reading his book when Dracula met Frankenstein. He talked a little bit about the movie, that the ending scene was filmed in New York.
Yeah.
As opposed to, I'm assuming the rest of it was California?
The rest was shot in Hollywood at a small sound stage.
Yeah. What interests me is that's a long trip for a tight budget. How did that happen? Did they fly out? Did they?
The film was finished, so people thought, and then it turned out the editor that they had in Hollywood had problems, and it became real clear he didn't do a good job of it. I didn't know that. I was back in New York, and I got a call from Sam saying, we got to redo the ending. It'll just be you, me, and Gina, his wife, and a guy as big as John Bloom. Oh, John Bloom. I'm getting Bishop. John Bloom is the 7-foot Frankenstein, and John, I'm getting my wires crossed. I haven't had much sleep. Anyway, the bottom line is they found this place up near Mayapack, New York, and there was no dialogue, and it was just, is it, everyone seen the movie? Yes. Okay. So you saw how the whole thing unfolded, and it was one of these quick shoots. It was a lot of fun, and people say, well, who won? And as I said last year, I won, but ultimately I lost. The sun came out. So that's how that came about.
One of the things I thought was interesting, and it's interesting sitting at the table with Zandor, is people come up, and if you remember the makeup, you had a different makeup artist for the end scene.
Yeah. I had somebody who took a can of clown white makeup, like you see in the circus, and they put that on my face. I wasn't paying attention. I figured, Al had it covered. And then they took black eyeliner or something and made these things, and the rest is history.
So it's fun sitting at the table with him. Is people like a lot of us who saw it on TV in the late 70s. It was like prime Alice Cooper Kiss time. So when I was a kid, I was like, he's like a member of Kiss. But I always thought that was just me. But I sit there and there's so many people that come up and saw it around the same time. And they made the same association. So I always thought that was very interesting, that it was kind of like a haphazard situation ends up totally fitting in with the whole pop, rock thing that was going on in the late 70s. So you were just ahead of your time.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, good way of looking at it. And it's possibly why folks who love the movie find it so endearing, because it's so wacky.
Yes, sir.
In the Dracula versus Frankenstein, in the laboratory sequences, I understand those machines actually have a great history behind them.
Yeah. Strickfaden.
And all of us here have always marveled at what is it like to be on the set with those and to see them. I mean, do they?
Well, I'll answer your question. Some of you may have, I think it was asked last year when I came on the set for that, and it was humming and burping and doing whatever else it was doing. Whoever was on there said, "Xander, get away from those. Those things are alive, and you won't be." It was like, oh yeah.
Gentlemen in the back, yes.
The latest releases, they have that alternate ending. Is that the one that was messed up that you had in New York?
You mean the end of the film?
Yeah. When you guys get cars chase each other.
The ending of the original film, you would like seen it, obviously. We were in a small sound stage off of Hollywood Boulevard, and a number of the scenes were shot in the alley and up and down the building. Jim Davis, who was the father in Dallas or whatever that show was, he was the cop, and trying to remember this. At the very ending, the way the original thing was, I got slammed into, I guess it was either the cop or someone else drove me into something like a water cooler or something, an outside thing, and it had a prawn about half the size of my arm, about as wide as this, and slammed me against to impale me through my heart from the rear, And I guess when the investors saw that, they said, and then Sam and Al decided to reshoot it, So that coupled with the poor editing.
I also thought that led to something, again, when I saw late, and then people come up and said the same thing. So we saw in the late 70s on TV, since they changed the ending, that means they have to kill the protagonist. So you zap him within your range. So basically the good guy is running off with the girl, and then you just zap the good guy. And that was one of those things, and again, other people said the same thing. We'd never seen that happen before. So once that happens, you're like, yes, just like that. So once that happens, you're like, where's this movie going? Which of course leads to Dracula fighting Frankenstein. But still, that was just a shocking moment, because you just zapped the good guy, he's ashes, and that's that. I was like, wow. Yeah.
So these little tidbits make it the film that it is. And I think I may have mentioned, but I wasn't a big fan of horror, if at all. And it's become something I have the greatest respect for now, because it serves a purpose. And that's going to be part of the whole unfolding of Dracula Returns, because it serves a very meaningful purpose. I'll give you a hint. Instead of men and women going out on the streets, doing what they're doing on the streets in violent ways, I've been told repeatedly that because of these kinds of films, whether it be Dracula films or Wolfman or whatever they are, these horror films, people get to have that vicarious kind of feeling. And recently I did a performance up at Marquette University having nothing to do with Dracula, that we added the Dracula aspect to it. And a man told his personal story that he was bullied as a boy. And all his friends that he hung around with, they have names, nerds and this and that, Basically, anyone who's had a terrible childhood looks to pick on someone smaller or weirder than they are. And these kids, from what this man told of his personal experience, they went to these kinds of movies so they could feel some of the power they saw portrayed through these monsters. And suddenly the light went on and made it much clearer that this is serving a purpose and has served a purpose for a while. I was constantly on the question of why are so many people so, this to my knowledge, the last thing I heard was there are 85 men who portrayed Dracula in a movie, not on Halloween or, out in a club or something. And why is that? It's the most used role for any actor on the planet forever. And there has to be a social reason for that. Society calls forth that kind of stuff. And it's how we handle that. If we do it like we're all doing here this weekend, it's like a fun time to be together, to meet people, people you've seen in films, and have the interaction and find out we're real. I have all this hair. I have a barber who can't get the hair behind me straight. So I have a bald spot. How many vampires do you know? We're real people, and we get to do in life what we're called to do. And we're the lucky ones sitting. We are the lucky ones. You know what's in the news today. You know exactly what's going on. And it's despicable. It's just heartbreaking. I'm kind of tearing up even thinking about it. Anyway, ask another question.
Any questions? Yes, thank you. Sorry, gentleman in the back.
Loud.
What were you doing prior to you roll this back or on and try to rehearse this right his start and not get you on the
How did I end up getting the role? What was the first part?
what were you doing prior to the role?
I'm not hearing.
What were you doing prior to the role?
What were you doing prior to your role?
What were you doing before Dracula versus Frankenstein?
What was I doing before that? I had gotten back from Vietnam. I was living in New York City and working in the music business in record stores that friends of mine own. And someone who knew that I had family friends who had were on Wall Street and had money, said you can earn some money by you get a commission if you put this person on Wall Street together with these two guys I know who were looking to upgrade their film company, which was Sam and Al. And so that's how it began. And they would come in from Hollywood and from, I think Sam was in New Jersey or Long Island somewhere. And we'd meet a couple of times and we'd talk about what was being envisioned. And then the third time, Al, who was a really go-getter, he's a basketball player, he's a sports guy, real energetic. And he's sitting there and he's like slumped over in his chair. And I said, "What's wrong with you?" And so Sam says, "Well, we lost Carradine." And I said, "What does that mean?" He said, "Well, Carradine has played this role for us before. John Carradine, the father, not the young one." And he said his agent or somebody else upped the money. And, as you know, low-budget films are named that for a reason. And all of a sudden, Al looks at me and he goes, "He'll do it." I'd never told him I don't like horror films. Sam says, "What do you mean he'll do it? Nobody knows him. They know Carradine." He said, No, I have a feeling about this." And boy, was he right. He's very right. They made something like 34 films. And if you see Severin's David Gregory, who's a great filmmaker, he did a documentary on Al. And if you see that, you see what it takes to make a film. And I'm trying to get to the point. I lost my train of thought again. I have had about 3 hours sleep in the last 2 days. Bear with me. I don't want to leave you hanging, but I will. If it comes back to me, you'll be the first to know.
But yeah, it's Flesh and Blood, right? The documentary that Severin did?
Say it again?
Flesh and Blood? Is that the name of the documentary?
Yeah, that's the name. And I think Severin has it. It's a really good film.
Has anybody seen that? Yeah, it's great.
It's called Blood and Flesh.
Is it Blood and Flesh?
Blood and Flesh.
Blood and Flesh, thank you. Yeah, it's great. Very good.
People in the orange shirts are good. They're coming to take you away.
I'm sorry, I have a special announcement to make. It's just like 1971 all over again, Zandor. It's Dracula versus Frankenstein.
Oh my! jump this year.
Wait a minute, I think Ursula's here.
Wait!
Oh. I think it's a peace offering. It's not going to be a fight. It's a peace offering.
You're going to hit me with a box of chocolate?
It's a It's a box of chocolates from John Sargent, 10 pounds of candy from Finlandville and Zandor Vorkov. We're so happy to have you as one of our guests again.
Thank you. We want to pose.
Zandor Vorkov at Monster Bag.
Thank you. Before you go home, I want you to hear something. I only have 2 hands. This is, they don't know about it. I got a surprise for you. Stick around, Ursula. For the work that these folks do here with your support, volunteer types, I put forth before we make my film that you take up a collection and send them on a cruise somewhere. My question is, you know what the biggest question I have? When do you sleep?
I got a little vampire blood in me, too.
Thank you very much.
All right, well, that's it. Thanks for listening to this episode of Monster Kid Radio. Thanks for sticking around, and thank you for allowing us the time that we needed to kind of stretch our legs after flying halfway around the world and get set up here in Kuwait. Monster Kid Radio should be back onto a pretty regular schedule moving forward. I've got some conversations from Steve Turek. He's taken over as guest host with some conversations with some people that you've heard in the past, including Kevin Slick. And if my memory is correct, we're going to keep the vampire vibe going because Kevin Slick and Steve Turek spoke recently about the original Dracula, Bela Lugosi's 1931 bona fide classic. And that's what you're going to hear next week here on the show. Of course, if they want, Kenny and Mark have a spot here as well. And then maybe I'll even ask Beth to join me to talk a little bit about where we are on the haunt next week as well. If you want to know anything else about Monster Kid Radio, follow me over at monsterkidradio.net. You're going to find links to our Facebook page and group, our Twitter, our Reddit, our Discord, our Patreon, and everything else we have going on. You're going to find links to everything that we've talked about here on the show over there as well. Also, please consider using the Amazon affiliate link. I know we're getting close to the time of year where people start buying presents for everybody. If you're shopping at Amazon, I know it's kind of last minute at this point, but if you're shopping at Amazon, please consider going to Amazon through our Amazon affiliate link. It's the Frankenstein silhouette with the big A on it. Just click on that. It takes you to the Amazon page as normal. Do all your shopping after you've clicked on that, and we get like a penny or two out of every $100 you spend. I don't think Jeff Bezos is going to miss it, but we really could use it. So please consider supporting us that way. Also, please share this episode with your friends on all of your social medias. And like I said, next week-ish, Kevin Slick and Steve Turek talking about Dracula. Anything else you want to say before we sign off?
Happy holidays, everyone.
Monster Kid Radio is a registered service mark of Monster Kid Radio, LLC. All original content of Monster Kid Radio by Monster Kid Radio, LLC is licensed under a Creative Commons Attribution, Non-Attribution, Share Alike, blah, 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 whatever license. I don't have it in front of me. I can't read it off. Anyway, that's it. This is Monster Kid Radio. My name's Derek M. Cook. I'll talk to everybody next week. Ciao.